Welcome to segment 6, and our guest this evening is Augie Deuser. He's running in the primary, actually, for the 1st Congressional District, and we want to talk about veterans, something that Augie holds close to his heart. We're having a lot of problems with veterans. They're going to VA hospitals, and they're waiting hours. Sometimes they can't even get in. Veteran services. Just today, literally today, a veteran called the suicide hotline at VA. They put him on hold, and he just went and killed himself anyway.
Oh, boy.
How do we deal with that?
Well, there's a lot of lip service that the politicians give to the vets, and it's very aggravating. I think every vet should have a vet card, and they can go get service at any hospital or any medical facility in the United States. That should not happen. There's 22 suicides a day in the service from basically PTSD. I go to IHOP every week for pancakes, and one of the waitresses there, I was talking to her and gave her my card and said I'm running for Congress, blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, I'm a veteran, and she has PTSD. And her mother and father were veterans, and her son is a veteran. And she says when she goes to the doctor, every time she goes, they want to send her to a different doctor, and they give her a hard time, and they give her a runaround, and they mess around with her about her medication. I don't see the difficulty here. I mean, the veterans are close to my heart because my whole family was in the service. And at our family functions after Thanksgiving, we'd clear the table, and then we'd play poker, quarter half. My uncle, he never told us. He was awarded the Silver Star. He was blown up in a tank, and we didn't know. I mean, my uncles knew, but we didn't know until he died, and my cousin said, he never told us that he was awarded the Silver Star. And my father and my other uncle were in Korea, and I had two other uncles that were in the Navy. So I say, let's forget about the lip service and let's do what's right by our veterans.
Now, would that apply to all veterans? I'm a Vietnam vet. Do I get a vet card?
Yes, all veterans. All veterans.
I could get into that.
All veterans should have a card for hospitalization because that's the ultimate sacrifice. I think that's the least we can do for our veterans.
Well, and, one of the things that has always struck me about the military, and I will say up front that, yes, when you're in the military, as an enlisted man, you're getting room and board. So your expenses aren't like it would be if you were out working a job. But having said that, we don't pay these guys a whole lot of money.
Exactly. They should. I mean, as I said earlier, congressmen are making $175,000 a year with a big pension. I think they should make $100,000 a year. Let's pay our armed forces some more money because they deserve it.
The dependents, a lot, particularly in the lower enlisted grades, dependents, and if they have a child, they actually qualify for welfare. These are active duty military. I mean, I think that's outrageous.
Yeah, I think that's a shame.
So I have a question with the card that you want to have. So you want them to be able to go anywhere for medical care and then get rid of the VA?
Well, I know the VA has a lot of problems. I would like to see start the card and try to alleviate the problems within the VA and maybe keep the facilities that are functioning really well and try to close the other facilities that aren't working really well. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, monetarily and logistically, as you're saying. They're having a lot of problems. Right. So if they can go anywhere to get treatment, then we don't need the VA anymore.
Well, I would hope down the line that we wouldn't need that anymore because if they could go to any facility, then you would need it. But there are some good VA facilities because I know my uncle who I was talking about, he would go to the VA, and where he went, they were pretty decent. So I think we have to get together and figure out which ones are productive and are working, utilize those, and maybe close down the other ones that aren't. And, you just reminded me of something. There was a mental health care facility in Tinley that Quinn closed when he was governor. And where do all those people go? And how many of those people were veterans? And what are we doing on a daily basis to keep 22 people in the service from committing suicide? I mean, we have to put a program in place, not only outside of the service, but also inside of the service. Look, I failed to mention this earlier, but in police work, you have the highest suicide rate.
Yeah.
You have the highest divorce rate.
And alcoholism.
The closest thing to being in the service is being a copper. I mean, I know. I was a third-generation copper. It's a tough job. I don't care where you work. My dad used to say, you got to be thick-skinned to be a copper. And I said, I don't care how thick-skinned you are. It gets to you.
Absolutely.
It aggravates. What I seen in 3 years, where I was, you might see in a whole year in a year in Chicago. But I arrested guys for the same things that you'd arrest them for in Chicago.
Yeah, I knew a guy from Academy who he went to like 3 fatal accidents in his first year, and he quit.
That's a bad draw.
He couldn't take it anymore.
Well, it is tough, and I always said it's years of utter boredom interspersed with moments of stark terror. I mean, you ride all day. People make fun of cops about eating donuts. You know what the reality is? You know this. You ride around in a patrol car for hours with nothing. You start to fall asleep. You eat and drink coffee because it keeps you awake.
Yeah, you drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah,
something to do.
And though, I got to tell you this. I never went into a Dunkin' Donuts or a McDonald's the whole time I was on the job because I did not want to foster the stereotype, because that used to aggravate me. And I'm the type of guy that wore a pig tie clip. You know what I mean? So,
I do. I went to Dunkin' Donuts. I will confess to it because they have good coffee. I went there for the wings. I swear to God. But normally we turn our phones off when we. Might as well take it out of your pocket, Augie. I mean, just if you want to wait, we'll put the show on hold. You just answer the phone.
It's just my son checking in. He's going to criticize my being
phone
on the radio.
He's going to criticize your phone.
He's going to say, "Oh, Dad, this was good. That was bad."
But veterans and cops both, to be honest with you, I kind of put them in the same category. I really do. People, I don't think, appreciate it. When you look at all these videos that show up on television, you know what? And you know this, because all three of us have been cops. When you approach a car on a traffic stop, the only thing you're thinking about is, I want to go home. I want to be alive at the end of my shift.
Yeah, it's like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Exactly.
I didn't know you were a copper.
Yeah.
She was a pointy-headed cop.
I want to tell you, I was in the city. I go to a golf shop there, 102nd and Western Avenue. It's called Cleese. He's a really nice guy. His father used to have the business. Now he owns it. I was pulling away, and I was on my phone, and I shouldn't have been on my phone, and a copper pulls me over.
For the phone?
For being on the phone. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that, what he was pulling me over for, but he pulled me over, and I got out, and he says, I need your license and registration. Now, I don't know if he ran my plate, because I don't know if you told me if you're CNC, it's supposed to come back now that you're CNC.
They're adding plates, yeah. It's on your driver's license, but the plates too.
So he unbuckled his gun.
That's a bad sign.
Well, what I'm saying is, he didn't know who I was from Adam.
Sure.
And with what's going on in today's society, he didn't know if I was going to reach in that glove box and pull out a gun and start shooting at him.
Yeah. So
my thing is, like I was saying earlier, hey, you know how it is. We were all coppers. You got a split second to make that decision.
That's true.
And there's an old saying. It says you either be tried by 6 or buried by 12, or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, it depends how big you are. But, we've been pulled over a total of 3 times. That's embarrassing to say.
Yeah, between us, we've had 3 traffic stops since we've had concealed carry. Clarification.
I haven't been pulled over 15 years before concealed carry. I got pulled over twice.
He's got a big flashing sign on his SUV that says concealed carry.
Stop me. And crash cargo over here doing 180 on 355.
That's not why I got pulled over.
Got us pulled over. But I got to say, 2 of them were state cops, and one was, she's now the chief of police in Hinckley. Yes. She wasn't at the time. Totally professional. Mm-hmm. I mean, just very easy to get on. In every case, it was, are you carrying? Yes, I am. Where's the gun? We told them where they are. And then that was it.
Actually, when I got pulled over in your driving your truck, they didn't even ask where the guns were. They just said, do you have concealed firearms in the vehicle? We both said yes. They go, okay, give us your licenses. And that was the end. They didn't even ask where they were.
Yeah. And I was very impressed by that, particularly by the state cops doing it. I was very impressed because there was a lot of concern about, Grau was, well, of course, every superintendent of state police is a political appointee.
Sure.
So they all are anti-gun guys, although now that may not be as true. But those three instances, very professional. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the state police pride themselves on that. That's why they have the rod up their butts, because
and the pointy-headed hat.
Yeah, they pride themselves on being professional. That's like the thing.
I guess the thing that bothers me is when you look at these videos, they show the underside of law enforcement. Of course, there's nutballs out there. But the other thing is oftentimes they're out of context.
Yes.
When you look at the actual interaction, you go, oh, my God, that's horrible. How can they do that? Well, they don't show you what happened before that.
Right.
How we got to that.
Right. Or why is the police officer there in the first place?
Right.
I mean, one of my favorites, I say favorite facetiously, is the police officer trying to arrest the girl in the bikini. The minor girl in the bikini.
I apparently missed that one.
On the lawn? Yeah, I saw that.
It's a pool party.
I do remember that.
And the police were called for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure why, but somebody called the police. So the police show up to the pool party, and they're trying to arrest this disorderly teenager. Well, I'm sorry, resisting arrest is against the law.
Absolutely.
I don't care what state you're in.
That was like the girl in the school who and everyone goes, oh, how could you? You got to look at the whole video and watch what happens.
Right, exactly. Why was he called there in the first place?
Once you're called, you're there.
You got to do something.
Yeah, you can't say, oh, okay, I'll go home now.
Right. You have to resolve it.
Cops got a tough job.
The toughest, I think.
And they're not appreciated for it. And it's the same thing with military. Now, the interesting thing is, our society, general common man, I'm not talking about gangbangers, but just the average person likes our vets today in America. Yeah. It's not like when I came back from Vietnam. Today, people like their veterans. It's the administration that doesn't. They're the ones that don't like them. And they treat them badly. I mean, they've cut the budgets. They've done everything they could to eviscerate the most powerful nation on the surface of the earth. And how in the heck we're ever going to recover from this, I don't know.
But every once in a while there's a bright spot. That one Army Ranger, whatever he was, Sergeant, whatever he was, who stopped the guy who was sexually abusing the little boy in Afghanistan.
Right, yeah.
And now all these people are going, you can't court-martial this guy.
Yeah, that's what they want to do, too.
He was doing what was morally right. We don't, regardless of what the military says is right or what their society says is right, he was doing what was morally right to him. And, in all of these things, there's bright spots. You see the videos of the police going and line dancing with the kids out in the street,
and playing basketball,
and stuff like that. I mean, there's bright spots in everything. And I've always said about police, but I'm sure it's the same with the military. There's 10% that make the other 90% look bad.
I agree. Today on Facebook, there was something about, and I don't even know where this memorial was, but I think it was World War II Veterans Memorial somewhere, and there was like a big pool sort of thing, but very shallow, like a reflecting pool.
Sure.
And there were people in the water. And there's a sign that said, don't go in the water. Okay, it's part of, this memorial.
Right, it's disrespectful.
And I made the comment. I said, I get it. There were people very upset, disrespect and all that. I said, I get that. But I also get this. All of those people at that memorial died in a war. And by now, if it was World War II, now they'd be 90, 100 years old.
Mostly be dead anyway.
And And if I said, if they were there right now looking at that and they would like see kids playing in that water, they think that was cool. I said, you're taking this way beyond serious, you know? Just look at this from the frame of reference that if you got some kids playing in that water, you think it's disrespectful because that's how we were raised.
Sure.
But those vets would give anything to be alive and see that. You know? We sometimes just get so caught up, both sides, liberals and conservatives, we get so caught up in what we think, and I got to say this about conservatives, and no one will ever listen to my show again. We always excoriate liberals for this, but the truth is, there are conservatives who get so caught up in their dogma that they are unwilling to even talk to other people. They're totally shut people out. There's no dialogue. You remember, Republicans and Democrats in the old days would go into a back room, they light cigars, and they beat the snot out of each other, and they came out with something.
Right.
That's gone.
You know, the last time that existed was when Reagan was president and Tip O'Neill was the speaker.
Tip O'Neill.
They got along very well, and they worked things out. And you know what? It's sad to see that we can't do that today. You know, my father always said, look, you got to find a happy medium with people. You know, you can't be so far to the right and so far to the left that you don't use common sense and come to an agreement. It's silly. If
you draw a line in the sand, you have to remember that line has two sides. When you say, I won't cross this, you're also putting a line for the other guy not to cross.
But there are some things that are clearly right and clearly wrong.
I'm not going to argue clearly right and clearly wrong. I'm just going to argue you have to give and take. You have to talk to people. You look at the heads of the Republican Party in Congress and the Democratic Party. They don't even talk to each other. Their vocabulary is so far apart. Democrats are talking about, and here's the interesting thing about gun control. They've always said, well, nobody wants to take your guns away from you. You have a Second Amendment right. Now they're not even doing that sham. Now increasingly they're going, yeah, we really do want them. You shouldn't have a gun. Aren't they? Seriously.
Yeah, I would say a few of them are letting it slip.
Well, but in the past, that was the third rail of politics.
Right.
You wouldn't even dare say that.
Right.
And
they are still avoiding the word, though. No one says the C word.
No, what they say is common sense gun laws like Australia.
Like Australia. Well, I was going to say, Australia is a euphemism for confiscation now.
Right.
Like, we don't want to use the word confiscation, so we'll just say Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody who is pro-Second Amendment knows exactly what that means. And the people who are not pro-Second Amendment don't know what that means.
Yeah. Anyway.
They don't understand that it's a euphemism.
It's they're using VA hospitals literally to screen vets to take guns away from them. Because what they're doing is they're saying everybody needs a psychological evaluation.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem that I have with the VA hospital. And this happened to somebody Ed knows him, I think. I think he does. He went in, he was in the hospital. They would not let him go out until he talked to the shrink. They said it's hospital procedure. Yeah. You can't leave until you get a clearance. You get a medical clearance, you get a psychological clearance. So he goes and talks to the shrink. The shrink says, okay, you're good, go home. Boom, they come and they confiscate his FOID card and take his guns because he saw a psychiatrist.
Yeah. Well, there's the catch-22 at policemen. Now, the policeman who shot the McDonald kid,
right?
He had a history, and the department should have taken him off the job. But if you go for help, there's your catch-22. You're not going to go back on the job again. They're not going to put you on the street.
Yep.
They might say you got to stay in the office forever. And the guy's between a rock and a hard place. He probably needed mental help. He didn't go get it. The department didn't make him go get it. So he's on the street, and he goes off and he loses it one day. And as a result of that, the terrible incident happens.
You're right. And, we'll just wrap this up by saying this administration right now is they've actually come out and said, we think everybody needs psychiatric evaluation. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
We talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, everybody needs psychiatric evaluation. that's just black and white clear. What they're trying to do is
That's socialism.
There's something wrong with you.
There you go.
There go your guns.
Well, right. They're going to find anything. Just like Cook County with concealed carry. Cook County was literally using any objection that they could dream up.
Exactly.
And then the state police would look at it and go, approved. And they were just disregarding more than 50%.
Well, I think that's it. That wraps it up. We appreciate your watching. And Augie, best of luck in the primary.
Thank you.
And, if you get on the other side, we'll have you back.
Thank you.
Okay. That's all for segment 6 tonight. Thank you.